Hello, everyone. So here we are on Titus 2, make ready for the month of December. And here we are, Mary Catherine and we would like to, just for those who are new that are hearing us for the first time, remind, and it's always good, repetition is excellent for learning. We're gonna go back to our main scriptures. Titus 2. Are you ready, Mary Kate?
Oh, I was on mute. The grace, me and Simi are sad. We're not with each other right now, but we're with each other in spirit. So here it is, Titus 2, 1-5. It says, but as for you, speak things that are fitting for sound instruction. Older men are to be clear-minded, dignified, self-controlled, sound in faith, in love, and patience. Likewise, older women are to be sanctified in demeanor, not backbiting or enslaved to much wine. Let them be teachers of what is good, so that they may train the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be self-controlled, pure, managing their household, kind, submitted to their own husbands, so that God's word may not be dishonored.
Amen. And that is part of our first, the first part of our title, Titus 2. And then how do we make ourselves ready? When Revelation 19:7 says, let us rejoice and be glad and give him glory, for the wedding day of the Lamb has come and his bride has made herself ready. So we are in our mentorship relationship that we've had for a couple of years already. We are working on that, on making ourselves ready. And we decided to choose different parts of our lives to address things that we want to learn and things that we want to grow into and be better at, or start anew if we've never done it. And it's part of this growing and making ourselves ready. And we decided to start with the body, and we will be addressing the body in 3 months. We started last month with the month of November in diet. It was the month of Thanksgiving, so very appropriately we chose that. And then this month of December is going to be sleep. And sleep is when we replenish, restore, and heal. And it is the month of dreams. A little bit more on that in a little bit. And then in January, we'll be talking about exercise. And that will complete our first 3 parts of the body. And we're also adding to that the spirits of God that we see in Isaiah. And the first one is wisdom. So we're applying wisdom on all those 3 and how to do it, that it will fit each one of us because we're all unique. And then we can really take and apply all these principles to our lives in the best way possible, and not be legalistic or rigid about that, because that's how we grow. We grow as we are able in all our different circumstances. So how about, since we're starting with sleep,
yeah, we've got some fun information Simi stumbled upon as we've been doing some of the research to share with you guys, just to show how important sleep actually is, because it's similar to our diet. We ask the question, why? Like, why does this matter? So why does sleep matter? Why focus on this as we make ready our bodies, right, unto the Messiah? So this graphic's also going to be shared in our downloads. When you all are watching this, you'll be able to click it and see it as well.
There you go. Do you see that?
Yes.
Or do you see?
I see screen time. It says there's 11 years and 4 months spent on the screens. And this was taken
Oops.
in the UK. So this will vary, especially when it comes to things like holiday statistics, because the things that many of us do might be different than what they did. But this is just a general idea to give you guys, what we are doing with our time.
Yes. So I love this. They just, took it as 79 years, and we don't really know who was all the people that they interview for this to create the stats, how many people they actually did this. And it will probably be according to their holidays, which may be a little bit different. But as you can see, we spend the majority of our time in bed. It's very interesting. So if this is another way of seeing it, you have, they just pack the jar with little beads, and each one of them, this is bed, this is work, this is screen time, eating, holiday, exercise, romance, socializing, school, and rest. And it just gets smaller and smaller. The majority of our time is really in bed. So there you have, in bed, we spent 33 years of our life. This was interesting to me. It says that we spent 26 years sleeping. It boosts our mental health, improves our physical well-being and our immunity, weight regulation, and fertility. All that takes care during those 26 years. But then it says we spent 7 years trying to sleep, whether it is doing breathing exercises, reading a book, taking a relaxing bath. So it's really interesting how much we actually spend trying to fall asleep. Then we have, you want to do the work?
Yep, it says 13 years and 2 months of work, which, that can vary too, because what we talked about with holidays, especially us that keep the Hebrew feast, a lot of us take off, full week for Sukkot and all the high holy days or Sabbaths if they land in the middle of the week, or Passover. So,
right. Yeah, that will vary there. And of course, this is 13 years that we're working outside our home. So what about us that work at home?
Right.
That will be a lot more than that. Right. Okay, then screen time. That's another interesting one. It says 11 years and 4 months, but that is, as it says there, 1/3 of the UK are adults, and half are between 18 and 24 years old. So that would change, the statistics will change a little bit for us, but it is, it's almost as much, the amount of time is almost this, very close to 13 years of work,
Right.
how much we actually spend. Ugh. And eating, I feel like we eat all the time. We wake up and we're eating lunch.
I know. I'm wondering, it makes you wonder if the statistic was done as though it wasn't eating like while you watch a movie or something. Like, are they accounting those snacks and stuff? Or are they trying to only isolate those specific 3 meals a day, if you sit down, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And, they do say here that 64% of Brits say they are trying to lose weight and are on a diet most of the time. And then they have 66% on desk eating, which for anybody that has any problems with anxiety or stress, where your cortisol is really high, you can't be eating while you're working, while you're driving. That just increases your cortisol. And that's one of the reasons, I believe, besides bad dieting that we talked about last month, that we are one of the highest countries in the world with obesity, because we're in a rush all the time.
Right. The fast food isn't, not only is it fast, quick made, but it's also fast, quick eaten. It literally says this, that their desk eating they only take 28-minute lunch breaks. So wow,
On
that's why
average.
it's such a low in that. And again, this is all in UK, but still it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. So here we go to the holidays, 3 years in 1 month. We were going to do that, and just to see in our Hebrew calendar how long actually that takes. But we're all in different places in that some are able to take, a whole week for Passover, a whole week for Sukkot, and plus the days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So there is a lot besides all the different fast days, and there are like Purim and Hanukkah. There are other festivities that we also would observe. So that would vary for all of us. And this was kind of sad. I don't know if that is something that will be applicable to us. A year and 30 days for romance in your whole life. That's like, I don't know. That's sad to me if it's true.
And it's funny what they said. Romance isn't completely dead. The average person spends 395 days in their life being romantic. I'm like, only 395 days out of like, I mean, that is sad. Of course, this is again the UK where things are a lot different. I feel like they're, anyway.
Yes.
It
Yes.
depends on the culture because I'm married to an Italian and that is not how it is for us. I'm like, wow,
Right.
Italians prioritize their romance.
Yes, yes. And my Russian man is also very romantic. So I don't know
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
I just encourage you, if that is the case for you, up,
Up
make
your
that
ante.
a priority because it is important. Not just for us. Think about this. Our kids follow our example. And if
Yes.
we don't give enough, we don't give importance to that. My husband and I did this years, actually, when we moved here to Knoxville in 97, the church that we were going to were having this marriage it wasn't a conference, it was really
Retreat.
more like, no, it was going to be done in a few months during the year, but it was kind of like everybody join in for this marriage program, so to speak. And so it was called Raising Kids or Growing Kids God's Way. So a biblical way of raising your children. And I was shocked, at the beginning. I'm like, okay, we've had already and it was really nice. It was several couples and we all sat at a table and we have dinner together. And then we went over the material and it was really a nice time. But we spent, I think it was the first month, the first 4 weeks, we met weekly, just talking about us, like us as a couple, husband and wife, and nothing about children. And I finally asked, I said, okay, I'm not so sure. Are you sure this is a marriage program, or is it, a couple and not a family? It says raising kids, and we haven't talked about the kids at all. And he was saying, well, that's exactly the problem. Most families think that if they don't have children, they're not really a family. They're just a marriage, a couple married, and you are a family. And it is important that you believe that you treat each other in a way that you are it. Children are welcome members to the family, but you don't become a family just because you have children.
Right.
And that was, a new concept for me. I didn't really see it that way. I thought, oh, we have, families that had no children were not really a family. They were just, a couple. And it's like, no. You are a family. And however you treat each other, that's how your children will learn. Because we don't normally, the proper way of doing it is you get married and then have children. Sometimes we have children and then we get married. That does happen. But the thing is that you become a family before your children start arriving. So the way you treat each other, they call it couch time. When he comes home or you come home from work, you sit down and you spend time together. That's why this whole thing about romancing, it's a little like 1 year and a month.
Alarming.
Yeah, it wouldn't fit in that. Because it is important, and when the kids see that that's mommy and daddy's time together, and then they know they're going to have time, the parent or the mother will have time with them too, then it becomes, oh, time between mom and dad is important. It's not something, and a lot of divorces happen. They stick together, things start cooling down to the place where there's no romance anymore. They're just roommates. And then it gets to a point where, you know, the children leave and the parents split. They hold on as far as the kids are at home. And when the kids leave, it's like, we have nothing else. The glue is gone that was keeping us together. So it is important that we do have, that we give an important time to our romance to keep it going. And so then it goes into school and extras. But, you know, we are in this month doing the sleep. And I wanted to bring about this month is the month of Kislev, which is actually called the month of dreams. So I wanted to give a little plug here to our sister Keisha that wrote this book on the new moon. And this is what she says. During the month of Kislev, the weekly Torah portions include 9 of the 10 dreams that are recorded in the Torah, the law of Moses. Because this phenomenon, Kislev, is often called the month of dreams. This is interesting on another level. Kislev is the darkest month of the year because it leads up to the winter solstice. But within this dark month, the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah, which is coming up, is celebrated. Hanukkah is actually a late Sukkot festival. It is what it's called the second Sukkot or Sheni Hanukkah. While tradition emphasizes the miracle of oil and the burning menorah, the book of Maccabees focuses on cleansing the temple and rededicating its service to the Lord. So it's a month not just for us to, since as you saw, we spend most of our life sleeping. And actually, when Abba created Adam and Eve, that was their first task, was to sleep, to rest. Hanukkah means also, it means dedication. And this dark season is an opportune time to rededicate one's hands to serving our God and the son of his right hand. So Jeshua, because this month is Benjamin. So Benjamin is the son of the right hand. And Jeshua, the Messiah, at his month tribal name, Benjamin suggests, the right hand of the archer of is also significant, which he yields. And I actually skipped that, but I'm going to say it because it sometimes triggers people when you say Sagittarius because of the zodiac. And this is not what we're referring to. So I want to make sure that you understand that we're referring to the constellation, because the sun, the moon, and the stars were given to us as signs in the sky for us to know the times, or the Moedim. So the constellation of Sagittarius will give us, is an archer. It's a man on a horse throwing the bow. And it is important that it says it is significant because with it, he wields his mighty bow. He is a great reminder of the power of God's right arm and the precision with which God works. Not only that, in the portions, we have Noah, and it is the bow in the sky that reminds us of his promise. So that is a great read. And we want to address how important sleep is, and how does it sometimes we think, well, that's when you go to bed and you do nothing. Well, is it really?
Mm-mm.
Can you
No.
tell us something about that?
No, me and Sim talked for hours about this stuff, the testimonies of how important sleep is. And even when you like brought up this whole romanticizing issue, well, I mean, I know for a fact, and this is part of my testimony, when I was struggling with sleep the most, which was with my daughter, Rhea, after I had Rhea, she's my firstborn. And I think a lot of new moms struggle with that whole transition of not getting the sleep that you're used to getting.
Yeah.
But it also affects your hormones and your ability to have a drive, any libido at all. It affects everything. Your adrenals. I mean, my adrenals, I actually had tests run and done, and mine were taxed. I mean, it was like, so of course that would affect my connection time with my husband, because I not only am I physically exhausted, I'm mentally drained, you're depleted.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not a loss of hope. So what I wanted to share with you all was just a little bit of what, with our journey with my daughter, she actually really struggled with eczema as a baby and had very itchy skin. And it made nights very long for me because I was up, constantly trying to stop her from itching. And I would just revert her to nurse. Nursing was what stopped her. It kept comforted her and it kept her from itching, but it left me sitting in a rocker, not sleeping. And I just remember the anxiety that I had going into nighttime when the sun would go down, just like, oh boy, here it goes. Cause it's like I knew I wasn't going to get that rest that I desired and I needed. But at the same time, as a mom, you're like, well, I would do anything to, provide for my kid or help them or whatever. So this journey was, after healing came and learning about health and minerals and nutrients and things like that, kind of like what we talked about in the last class or call. Once we kind of started healing and we actually were able to sleep because the skin wasn't sore, we both realized we had too much anxiety to even sleep. And one of the things that helped us overcome this, my husband would pray over me and Rhea, my daughter, the Aaronic blessing, but also he added his own little twists to it. And he looked up sleep verses, which Psalm 4:8 and Psalm 121, 1-4 were two of the main ones that he added to the end of our prayer. But I was telling Simi, as we've spoken about this, how it's like it's written in my heart now. It's just like I lay down and it just automatically comes out of my mouth over the kids, to the point that if like Brent's out of town and we're all snuggled up in the bed, if I forget for some reason, Rhea, my daughter, who's so used to it, is like, Mommy, you didn't say the prayer, And so, we pray and we say, lying down, we sleep in peace. For you, oh Yahweh, make me dwell in safety. Because it was me. I had my own struggles with it. And Rhea, for her, it was like this trauma of like the night was a really uncomfortable, itchy, it was just not a pleasant time for either of us. And so we overcame that literally with some of the techniques that Simi's taught, even in the last few years of being in the Rooted Cafe and learning through that. And she's going to go more into the theta waves in just a moment. But I also wanted to share about another tool that we use to help on top of this prayer time, to help me and Rhea both soothe our minds to really settle, to even be able to fall asleep and then stay asleep. We used an app called the Abide app. It's a Christian app, and they have all sorts of little sleep stories that are like biblically based, and they have scripture readings or psalms or songs, whatever to your liking, you can pick. And it's interesting. I've told Simi before how Rhea, as a 2-year-old, what she attached herself to the stories that she specifically liked. We would try all these different ones. She's like, no, I want Littlest Lamb. And for a year, she listened to that every night, and it's written on her heart. I mean, she could spit this entire story off all by herself. And it's a 30-minute story and a prayer and all the things. And then as she grew into her little girl self and kind of was starting to learn that there's different people and different uniqueness, the story went from being about the littlest lamb, which is the perspective of the lamb who's this little baby lamb that's watching the whole story of Christ's birth play out. But then she went to like a little more mature story that she gravitated toward about a little dolphin that's pink, but all the rest of the dolphins are gray. And it's based off a real story about a dolphin in the Calcasieu River. So it's just really sweet though, because now I tell people these things because I'm like, now she's like the best sleeper. It's not a lifelong struggle. Like there are truly ways. And not only have we healed the fear of sleeping or the anxieties that go with thinking about, oh, I got to go to sleep. That 7 years of trying to sleep. Now it's limited down to like, I just start to say the prayer and we're both out, you know? Not only does it make that shorter, but it also has opened up our eyes to what other healing can be done in the middle of our sleep and while we're sleeping. And no wonder God designed it to be so many years of our life dedicated to sleep and rest, because it's so regenerative and so much can be done. So many mind renewing moments where we really, in our wake time, the anxieties we had from all the trauma of the things that she had to go through, it was only in our sleep that some of that healing would have even been able to occur, you know? So
I love that. Yeah, I remember it was probably 2 years ago when we were doing healing at the well that I came about that abide. I didn't even know. But I found it as I was studying on pretty much what we're talking right now on sleep and the brain waves and theta and all that I just sharing here with you guys, the PowerPoint so you can see it. But one of the things that are important to know is that we have to give the big picture. We have to get the big picture because our Father says that his people perish for lack of knowledge because they don't have vision. And we need to have a vision we need to have the bigger picture so that we can see where we fit in it and we see the end, and that gives us hope. So there is a reason that he had this, and you would think, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because obviously he put them to sleep as soon as he created them. The day starts at sundown. And but at the same time, he knew that they needed that as fear crept into their heart when they disobeyed. And that causes all kinds of issues in our life and traumas and things that are either played against, that fear against us for those that want to hurt us, or even ourselves, depending on the fears. That we're all unique, so we all have different what our teacher calls spiritual curriculum. We all have something that we're going to have to overcome in our lives, and it's part of that curriculum. And so as that happens, then you know that he gave us the bulk of our time was for us to heal, restore, get our mind into his, Torah means instruction, follow his instructions so we don't follow the same road or same steps that the first Adam, but we know that Yeshua is the last Adam, and Adam also means humanity, mankind. So how the first mankind and the last mankind. That's our prototype. That's who we are going to follow. He came to do the will of the Father, and he did it perfectly to the end. So he came in human form. The Word of God became alive in a person, was dressed in flesh like us. But that word, it's still the word. It's still the Father's word that's teaching us how to live this life. So that's the big picture, is how to live this life. We started, as Mary Catherine read Titus 2, so the word of God will not be dishonored. It's all about honoring the word of God. Moses didn't get into the promised land because he dishonored the Father in front of the people when he hit the rock instead of speaking to it as he was told. So we see this repeating and repeating, and it's a way for us to overcome, because until we honor God's word, which is Messiah, his word dressed in flesh will be Messiah. Until we do that, we're constantly hitting, we're not hitting the mark. You know, that archer hitting the mark is what Torah means, you know, is following his instructions. So we miss the mark here and there all the time. So we have to overcome all that. So the way we have a computer, our brain is a computer, and in that is where the mind of Messiah dwells. So that is the head that governs the whole body, and he has given us way to learn. And one of them is through the way we program our mind. And the first two wavelengths here, they're all about, you know, if you put an EEG in you put all the electrodes in your head, and you get an electrical write up of what your waves in your brain are doing, you'll find that they have a frequency, you know, how fast they go, and they have an amplitude, how high they go. And depending on that makes it faster or slower. So if you see the bottom one, delta, it's almost flat. And it is, we're going to add the Shema, the bedtime Shema, which is a prayer that it's been prayed in different ways. Even little excerpts are used in the Catholic, are used by Christians, and it all obviously came from our Father. And it is about what happens when we sleep. That delta is so low that almost feels like we're not alive. As you can see, it's almost a flat line. Then you have the theta. You'll have a little bit more of an amplitude to it and speed to it. And that is right when you fall asleep or right before you wake up. And or it could be in a time that you're daydreaming, if that slows down, you know, down enough to that between 4 and 8 hertz. So then you go into alpha, and where you're more awake, as you can see, and beta, you're learning. And then in gamma is when you're really concentrating. And so I just wanted you to have that visual, but here you have more of the information on it. And you see that, let me move this down. So delta wave is the deep sleep. They are the lowest and of the highest amplitude. Then you have theta, are also healing waves or programming state, light sleep stages. It could be also daydreaming, and it is where we actually dream, is the REM sleep, or autopilot, when you're just vegging and your mind goes in autopilot and you're not really here. You're not being mindful. You're not in the present. Your mind just drifts. Theta waves are the dominant. This is Caroline Leaf says in one of her newest books, theta waves are the dominant frequency in healing, high creative states, remembering emotional experiences, whether they're good or bad, memory retrieval, and encoding new memories into thoughts. So mindfulness and meditation will increase this type of theta waves. So that means that you can engage that while you're awake. or you can increase them when you're awake, but they normally happen when you are falling asleep or waking up from sleep. And then you go into the alpha waves, which is when you're awake and resting comfortably, actively thinking about something, responding to any visual stimulation. Then you go into beta waves when you are fully awake and you're problem solving or concentrating. So like right now, you are listening to us and probably utilizing the information we're giving you. It's not just visual, like we started with those graphs, but now you're like, oh, okay, what does this mean to me? And then you can go into gamma waves, which is the fastest and responsible for learning, memory, and processing new information. So you're getting new information and you're probably taking notes. You are really getting it into your system. And that is, the ideal, obviously, when you're learning something new. So we're going to concentrate more in that theta wave, because delta, nothing happens, you're asleep, and it almost feels like you're dead. It goes so low that, you thank God when you come back and you wake up and said, in that bedtime prayer, that Shema bedtime prayer, you're thanking God for giving you life back, because it almost feels like you're dead at that point. It's like activity has ceased to the minimum, so that we can rest. That's why, and that's the majority of the sleep. That first theta and that last theta is very small. It could be, depending on, we're all different. It could be 15, 20 minutes. Some they say that sometimes it's 90 minutes into the sleep. It just depends how fast you go into it, and how you have programmed yourself to fall asleep. Like, I love your example, Mary Kate, and what how you did with Rhea and for yourself. Some of us have done that out of necessity. I used to get sick, motion sickness, every day going to school, just getting on the bus, and my mom couldn't send me on the bus anymore. She had to take me, because I would stop. I would make them stop so I can throw up, and it was awful. And it was so bad that I learned, that was my coping mechanism, how to fall asleep in a blink of an eye. My husband always mocked me when we first got married and says, I have never in my life seen anything like this. You literally put your hand on the pillow and you're out. That's not possible, because he tosses and turns a lot. So it's like, how do you do that? And to tell the truth, at that point, I had no clue. I'm like, I don't know. I've always done it. And now that I've learned so much about how the brain works, I'm like, that's exactly what I did. I trained myself how to fall asleep. And what's funny is, learning in mental health, you learn in hypnosis, not the stage hypnosis, but just the normal hypnosis that we actually all go through when the cadence that you have with your baby, shh, 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 slip a baby, and you sing a little song. And that is a cadence for hypnotics, to teach them to program hypnosis into their minds. And the first 7 years of our lives, we are literally in theta. If you have little ones, they are a blank tape that you're recording on them every single minute of your life when they're awake. So it is a very important part of our life that we need to pay attention. You want to share something there, Mary Kate?
Yeah, well, and I was just gonna say, it's like that. It brings like a whole nother level to the whole scripture about renew your mind.
Mhm.
And I remember you saying this before in one of the Healing at the Well classes, about when people are trying to figure out, like, say there is this really hard trauma that's really hard to face or whatever, or maybe their first 7 years of their life when they were in the care of their parents. Well, we don't have control over how we were treated or what we went through. And some of us are older and we're like, oh, like, I know there's got to be a block or something's triggering me. I can't figure it out. Well, that theta wave is that time to ask your brain to bring that up, to heal that place, and ask the Father to enter into that moment and
Mhm.
into that time. Or, I mean, as I'm saying this now, I'm like, well, why don't we ask the Father to extend our theta time? You know, if there's stuff that we know that's deep down in us and we don't even have the strength to face it in the moment in our waking hours, why don't we ask God? We should, you know, like,
Yeah.
let's start asking him, extend my theta sleep time and enter that, like, please heal me in that time,
Mhm.
because it's like we've said this before, our God never slumbers, he never sleeps. That's one of the verses that brought me so much comfort, knowing
Yeah.
he's never slumbered, never sleep. Like, he's watching over me. He's with me, especially if anxiety is a part of your sleep struggle,
Mhm. Mhm.
it helps you to feel safe, as,
Yes.
and so, but it's like even though we have need to rest, like that's when he's able to work his best, I think. So
Yes.
anyways, it's encouraging to know, especially if you're someone who maybe struggles with taking that time for yourself to sleep or to rest, because maybe you're a doer and you don't like stopping. It's like remembering that whole point that we talked about at the beginning, that Simi mentioned, how Adam and Eve, like, in the very beginning, to rest was what God created it to be that way. And I
Right.
believe that, I love thinking of it in that way. Like, your worth isn't in what you've done,
Mhm.
it's like what we said in the Bema podcast. They say it's not about how many bricks you make. It's in just being made in the image of God alone and being a child of his, and to rest, to Shabbat, to sleep, to
Mhm.
stop, is to say, I trust the story, I trust him, and I trust that I'm loved, and it's to honor him by honoring ourselves and our needs.
Yes. And there is a scripture that says there is rest for the people of God. In
Yeah.
that rest, there is Shabbat. There is a
Hmm.
Shabbat. And it is the only feast that literally happens every week.
Hmm.
It is one of, not just one of the commandments, but it is actually one of the feasts that it repeats every single week.
Hmm.
And it is important that we learn to rest. And when you said that, it reminded me of, what are the things that hinders us from resting, like from falling asleep? What about that circadian
Oh yeah. Well,
rhythm?
and unfortunately, like what we read on the statistics, how many hours of time are we spending on the screens? Well, it's
Mhm.
even like, I feel like it's probably even higher than the statistics we just read, because of now so much is virtual, and those blue
Mhm.
lights that are emitted off of our screens, they affect our cortisol levels.
Yeah.
And even like all the artificial lights in our home, and you know um not going, like, when you wake up, if the first thing you look at is the natural sunlight outside, that's actually one way you can balance that your
Mhm.
circadian rhythm. You see
Right.
that red light emitting off the sun. Then there's also, um well, obviously your diet affects your ability to sleep properly, but we can do things like wear, these are not blue light blocking, but there are glasses that they make,
Mhm.
um that are blue light blocker glasses. So if you are someone that has no choice but to be on screens a lot, like it would
Right.
be worth it to invest in that kind of thing.
Yes.
And then that's
I was going to
what you
bring mine. I have them. I usually use them later on in the afternoon towards night, but I didn't
yeah.
bring them over here.
Yeah, but then there's also other modalities, like, one of the things I did also, I forgot to mention, with Rhea and myself, and my husband and my son, we just automatically do it to them, even though they don't have any problems with sleep. But magnesium lotion and massage,
Hmm.
and the tapping, anything that's going to lull us,
Yes.
into that. And like you said, that it's not hypnosis, but it is a lulling. It's
Yeah.
like it's not something woo woo. This is truly just like a scientific way of explaining in layman's terms, essentially theta wave is lulling hypnotic type states, but it's truly just that in between sleep state where you're not quite in REM, but you're not quite in, delta or whatever, delta.
Well, actually, what you're doing, that's why I wanted them to have, I put that picture so you'll have that in your mind. You're lowering the speed that your brain is working at. So you're calming yourself down.
Yeah. And depending on okay, if you were just straight up at gamma or, where it's going to take some time to get you set. And it's kind of like a heart rate. If you think about when you exercise really hard and it's really high up, and they even can measure our fitness based off of how quickly you can go from such a high rate to a steady heart rate. So, and we also talked about too, how grounding, when you step outside barefoot and you ground, that is another way that you can help bring your circadian rhythm into balance and just kind of get in touch with the electrical waves of the earth. When the sun starts to go down, don't be having all of your lamps on, and your lights on. If you can do candlelight, or which would be like a non-toxic beeswax candle, or some people like to use salt rocks that are more red lights and not these blue. It's the blue that really hinders our eyes, and it kind of tricks our brains. And we actually have a second release. We used to call them, oh, she hit a second wave, or wind, whatever. Yeah, second wind. And, we're a beach family, so we're always using beach term. Second wave. But it's true. It at 9 o'clock, a second hit, you get a second hit of cortisol. And it'll take it takes you straight up to that gamma, the high frequency waves, and you've got to bring it down to that theta. So, you just got to know, okay, I need to avoid all these things so that I can support myself entering into this, theta sleep healing, and see it from that place, not of, oh, I have to calculate and I have to get this many hours of sleep to prevent Alzheimer's, or, don't let it be a fear-based thing. But it's out of the why behind it is, so I can be my most renewed mind sitting in the seat of Messiah person the next morning as I'm operating with my children and my husband, my coworkers, all the people I need to minister to today, is going to function at its highest if it's had that time to heal, restore, and him to speak to you or to your heart or to your soul,
Yep. I found this little chart for the circadian rhythm. And if you see right here at 21, that is 9 o'clock. The melatonin secretion starts. So if you keep the lights up, then you don't start that. That starts because right here by 7 o'clock, you have your highest body temperature, and then it starts to go down. So as it starts to go down, you have time to relax, and then the serotonin kicks in and you fall asleep. But if you keep this so high, like it's still daylight, our body doesn't know. Our body goes by the light it perceives. So if you keep it up, then your body says, okay, right now it's time for me to, wind down and produce melatonin, but I'm still working. So cortisol goes up and it just says, let's continue to work. But then you have adrenal fatigue. Then you are so tired and you wonder why. And it's because your body wasn't supposed to be working at this point. So you're revving up and going against the natural flow. This will be your natural flow. And so that way you can. And then what happens if you stay up late? You eat because then you get hungry. So then you're munching on things, and that changes your blood sugar. And then you wake up in the middle of the night because your body needs your
Yeah.
insulin goes up.
Yep. It literally affects everything. It really
Everything.
does. It really does.
Everything.
And the temptation to grab your phone when you can't sleep, it's so hard, but
Mm,
the the there is a chemical that our brains let off when we look at a blue light screen from the hours of 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. And that chemical is a chemical, which why do we wonder all the youth that struggle with depression? I mean, you can't just say it's just one thing, but these screens, when we look at them in these hours, I mean, this is just a part of it. It's not the blue light. It's not supposed to be there. That's time
mhm.
our eyes are supposed to be closed. If you want to optimize your sleep, and it makes sense why our body temperature goes down and then the melatonin goes up at 2 hours or so later,
Mhm, mhm.
because they even say those who struggle with sleep, the room be really cold and really, really dark. It just, it coddles that environment for
Right.
better sleep. But when we interrupt it and we look at our phones in the middle of the night when we wake up and then we're like, oh, I have insomnia, I can't fall back asleep. Well, it's like basically you prescribed yourself a pill of doom. Like you're doing
Yeah,
it to yourself.
right. Yeah, there is the way I learned it was, so Mel takes you to bed and Sarah wakes you up. So melatonin puts you to sleep, and serotonin is not really SAR, it's
Yeah.
SER, but
Yeah.
it's just a good
Way to remember it.
way to to remember that. So yes, so you're making your body create serotonin because you need it to wake up, and
Mm-hmm.
then you you don't it wakes you up, and then you actually want to go to sleep. Your body gets all messed up. It doesn't understand what is it that you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, then when the day does come up and you are facing the light of the sun and all that, it feels like you've been up for hours. Then you're groggy. Then you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do anything. I need to sleep. And we do. If we sleep less than 5 hours, our body will eventually stop. It will get sick to tell you, enough, I can't continue to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need those hours that you're not in theta, you're in delta. You need those hours to stop all the different processes in your body
Mm-hmm.
so your body can restore, replenish. It's kind of like going into a supermarket and at that really late time, if you have gone in the middle of the night to a supermarket, is when they're putting their stuff in all the shelves, because during the day everybody comes and buys the stuff, so then they replenish everything. Well, it's the same thing with us. That's the time that our body says, okay, I ran out of toilet paper, we need to put more on the shelves,
Right.
whatever it is that it needs. And so if we don't give that, then the day starts and customers are coming in and it's a mess. The shelves are empty. The people are trying to stack it while you're trying to buy, and it's not very fluid and it's not comfortable, and is chaos. It's out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
Something is
Mm-hmm.
not right. And that's what happens.
And
We
I
need
know
the
that
time.
the temptation would be for a lot of people to want to try to take melatonin. It's like, oh, well, I'll just take melatonin and but it's like you've said, because I've asked you before,
Yeah, it doesn't work for me.
well, and it's not
A
even
mess.
about but I remember I was telling you a friend of mine was giving melatonin to their kid. And I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. Like, and you were saying how our bodies actually quit producing melatonin for themselves when you just take it. And
Take
so
it.
really the best medicine to take is to just get in rhythm
Mhm.
with the way God designed it to be,
Right.
and have that discipline. And that's why mentorship and discipleship, there's like a refining to it. And it's hard because you have to take a hard look at your life and be like, okay, like there's some patterns or there's some things habits that need to be shaven off so that I'm operating at my optimal place for my people and for my kingdom.
Right.
So
Yeah, that link, we're gonna put it, there was an article that you found that is excellent,
Oh yeah.
and we're gonna add it up so that it gives you ways to help you fall asleep. And sometimes going back to staying up late and probably watching a movie while you're eating some snacks, and especially if it's sugary snacks and things like that, then what happens is your sugar level goes out of balance. And it was really interesting to read there. They have what they call their buttermint, um, butter and mints. And it's like literally you made them out of butter, honey, and some drops of essential oil. You put peppermint if you want to. But what it is, it's that fat is needed to prolong the need of sugar. So you don't have that spike of insulin and you can sleep longer. Otherwise, you wake up in the middle of the night and you need to go to the bathroom. And if you are diabetic, or you know of anybody diabetic in your house, you know how often they have to go to the bathroom, because you that there is there is a flushing that your body needs to do in order to get rid of so much sugar, because
And
we have just so much insulin. And if that little bit of insulin is not going to be it's going to be needed more because we keep eating, then we, you know, eventually you're going to have to take insulin. And the sad part is how many people would continue to eat like the way they were, and they just take more insulin. It's okay. It's like, no, going back to the melatonin. No, you stop. When you do that, your body stops producing. Our bodies were created to produce the things that we need. And if you start giving it to it, then our body says, why even bother? I'm getting it, you know, regularly. And so then it stops. So that is, there are a lot of, and you can click. So you're reading this article, and then there are links for adrenal fatigue and what to eat. If you wake up in the middle of the night, how to go back, eating a piece of cheese, or a spoonful of a nut butter, not almond butter or something like that. Some people can do peanut butter. My body doesn't like it, so
me neither.
almond butter will be a healthier choice. And so it's just, there's a lot of good material there for you guys to figure out what helps you and what is your need, because we all have different needs. And even our chemistry is different. So we are all unique in many different ways. And one of them is, and they'll tell you in the information in the literature of melatonin medicine, it would say for some people, this would actually cause the opposite effect. And I'm one of those people. I'll take melatonin and I'm wide awake. So it, you know, like Mary Catherine said, it's so much better to just nourish your body's needs and natural forming hormones for it to work properly. There is a reason why our father did what he did with our bodies. They function perfectly if you use it according to instruction. And we always like to do our own little follow our own little instructions, and obviously we derail the train.
Yes. Are we doing good
Well,
on time?
you know what? I think we are. I got on a little bit earlier before I started the recording, so we may be a little bit over. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, overall, you guys get the point. We all need to sleep. And this isn't us like preaching to y'all, because we're preaching to ourselves too, because
Oh
like
gosh.
last night, me and Simi were up late having our own having our own little lovely healing. I mean, it was healing in the sense of what we were talking about, but you know, it wasn't beneficial to our circadian rhythm, I'm sure. So we're not coming at this from people who are perfect and have it all figured out. I am coming as someone who had anxiety towards sleep and have healed in that area. My daughter as well. But do we go to sleep before 9 every single night? No. And we're not going to pretend like we're perfect either, but we're just
Right.
all in this together. And we're all going to try to work on this, especially during these winter months when it's the opportune time to, with the dark settings, it's actually like a great time to heal that rhythm that's
Yeah.
getting out. So
Yeah. And going back to that buttermints, they say that it would take probably about 2 months to do that regularly, the intake of that at night, to balance your sugar. So it's not like you start taking it and then you're fine and you don't wake up anymore during the night. You will continue until it could take up to 2 months to balance that. So depending how bad you are, you can probably balance that earlier or, up to that much. So it takes time. And I can say that I used to sleep 5-6 hours, and that was a lot for me because I would go to bed late and wake up early. And that was not, I was just burning my adrenals, and that is not good. So at least if I don't go to bed, I never go to bed at night, but even if whatever time I go to bed, at least I try to sleep 7 to 8 hours. No matter if I stayed up until midnight, then I wake up the next day at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't wake up earlier than that. I try not to. So it's important that at least you give your body, that will be a good step in the right direction, to at least sleep minimum of 7 hours. That will be ideal, no matter what time you go to sleep. And if you can make that earlier, then even better.
Yep.
Sure.
So now y'all can join us in the after party to talk live for sure with Simi and maybe with me, because I'll be at the beach. That's why we recorded
I'll
this.
be suffering here in the winter while she's having fun at the beach.
But I'm going to try to join, maybe and make it our lunch break. I'll come and hang out with everybody. So we'll see you all soon. And Simi, you going to stop the recording?
Yes. And I'll stop the recording right here. See you next month. Let's see.